right, thank you. Real quickly, sorry, something just popped up on my screen, which is abnormal for me. All right, well, with that said, I think what we'll do is we sent out a kind of an order of who is speaking and how and what the order is based on people's sensitivity of needing to get off the call. That said, I'll do a quick introduction of our speakers and then we'll go right back to the top and start from there. So with that, this morning we have Mayor Kathy Clark from Kaiser. Thank you for joining us this morning. In 2015, Mayor Kathy Clark was elected as Kaiser's 6th mayor. Mayor Clark is currently working with leaders in Salem, Marion, and Polk County to carry out the work of the Mid-Willamette Homeless Initiative to improve services for people who are homeless in our community. Mayor Clark and Kaiser City Council, are also committed to ongoing support for our community and neighbors throughout the recovery of the 2020 pandemic and the Canyon wildfires. I'll tell you what, this pandemic has really sucked, if I can just say it bluntly. Mayor Bennett is with us this morning. Thank you, Mayor Bennett. Salem Mayor Bennett took office in January 4th of 2017, serving his 3rd term as mayor. His record of 9 years in city council and dedicated service to Salem resulted in street improvements, sidewalk replacement programs, included funds for public safety and other livability initiatives. Mayor Bennett is a former member of the Oregon House of Representatives and in 2018 retired as Director of Government Relations for the Confederation of Oregon School Administrators. Thank you for being here. Steve Powers is with us this morning. Thank you, Steve. Steve came to the city of Salem with more than 25 years of government leadership experience, which includes financial management, economic improvement, and expansion and creation of community partnerships. In 2015, Mr. Powers and his wife relocated to Salem from Michigan. He holds a Bachelor of Arts in Public Administration and a political science from Augustana College and a master's in public administration from the University of Kansas. And I'll digress real quick. I always appreciate when someone takes the time and effort, puts forth the energy to get a master's degree. I always really find that impressive. I myself went to the University of Hard Knocks, and while I believe I have a master's degree, I have no paperwork to prove it. I digress. Next up, we have Senator Deb Patterson. And this is impressive for me personally. Reverend Dr. Deb L. Patterson is an ordained clergywoman with the United Church of Christ, currently serving a 130-year-old rural congregational church in the Mid-Willamette Valley. Senator Patterson was elected in 2020 to represent District 10, which includes South Salem, West Salem, Monmouth, Independence, Turner, Almsville, and parts of Four Corners and unincorporated East Salem. Thank you for being here. I didn't see Senator Thatcher, but I'm sure she's here. With that said, Senator Thatcher, elected to the Oregon House of Representatives in 2005, has served her community as both a business owner, community advocate, and elected official. In 2014, Senator Thatcher won election to the Senate District 13, which incorporates Kaiser, Newburgh, St. Paul, Sherwood, Wilsonville, King City, and parts of Beaverton, Hillsborough, Tigard, and Tualatin. Thank you for joining us this morning. One of my favorites, personally, Representative Raquel Moore Green is with us this morning. I did see her smiling face this morning. Representative Moore Green has been highly active in the Salem community for over 24 years. Representative Moore Green has an extensive work resume, including being a small business owner. She has worked for Senator Jackie Winters and Representative now Commissioner Kevin Camerons in various roles and brings that experience into the Capitol. She has the honor of serving as representative in House District 19, which includes parts of South Salem, Almsville, Turner since 2019. On the commission side for Marion and Polk County, this morning we have Polk County Commissioner Craig Pope here. Before being elected in 2010, Commissioner Pope started a small manufacturing business, AgriWeld Inc., which supplied niche market agricultural solutions across the United States and some overseas as well. Commissioner Pope was elected in 2014. His long history of community service outside his role as commissioner ranges from anything from working with FFA volunteer to firefighter to station captain for over 25 years. Finally, but not least, a friend to, certainly all friends, but a friend to the chamber is Commissioner Kevin Cameron. Commissioner Cameron was appointed to the Board of Commissions in June of 2014, elected to his first term in November of 2014, and re-elected again in 2018. Commissioner Cameron represents Marion County on the Marion County Economic Development Advisory Board, Marion County Budget Committee, and Marion County Extension and 4-H service districts, among others. Prior to being elected to Marion County Board of Commissions, Commissioner Cameron served as the House of Representatives representing the residents of House District 19. Whew, mouthful. Welcome, everyone. I'm glad everyone could be here. That said, I believe, Mayor Clark, you have some time commitments, so I would like to just go back to the top of that list and start with you and kind of get your input on what the City of Kaiser is planning at this point. And thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me, and thank you, Zachary, for persisting. Life has been very busy on a personal and professional level, so while you all are enjoying the warm weather where you are, I travel to get even more of it. My grandson will be 1 year old today, so I'm here with family to be able to celebrate that wonderful milestone in Arizona. So if it wasn't hot enough, I got more. So we really appreciate the work of the Salem Chamber to keep everybody informed during a very, very difficult and constantly changing year that we have had. I'm hoping that the road ahead, even though we're going to have additional challenges, that these are some things that we are a little more familiar with, or have already established the foundations for being able to figure out how to navigate forward. With the ARPA funds in particular, the City of Kaiser is not one of the agencies that automatically receives an allocation. So we are going to have to receive that allocation once the state determines how much we're going to get. Do we have a list already? Oh, of course we do. And we also have an idea of where our priorities need to be in order to spend that. Once the funds are identified, then we'll have to do some additional supplemental budget process and allocate those funds. We're looking at things that have to do with the operation of the city, to make some of our services whole, to make some of our processes whole again, because we did take financial hits as everybody did. But also we're looking to the future. How can these dollars be well invested to make sure that they have a benefit, not just now, but going forward for both health, safety, and sustained operations. On top of everything else last year, one of the things that happened to the City of Kaiser is we got nailed for ransomware. That was a horrible, horrible situation where all of a sudden we got locked up and we had to deal with some issues with how we're going to handle that, how we're going to get our systems running, and then of course going forward, how we're going to protect those systems. So a lot of the funds that have come in so far and then plans for the future have to do with prevention of issues that we have had erupt in our lives over the last year. I asked our finance director, who is currently also serving as our interim city manager, Tim Wood, for some thoughts on how these funds may be able to be used. And I really appreciated his point of view on how we can use these funds effectively going forward. And I'm going to scroll to that screen real quick on my end so I can share those thoughts. We have just finished our, there we go. We just finished our process. And so we've already had our work session regarding what our priorities are, how we're going to approach our budgeting for the 21-22 budget season. And looking at that, then we know where some of the gaps are and some of the deficits are relative to the funds that we were able to leverage last year. So first and foremost, we'll be continued to be leveraging funds for relief for residents and for our businesses. One of the things we did early on was make sure that we had a system set up between the city and a couple of nonprofits to help facilitate residents who had lost their jobs or not able to make their utility payments to be able to do that through St. Vincent de Paul and the Salvation Army. So thank you to both of those organizations for being our partners in this. By the end of the year, we wanted to make sure, end of 2020, that anybody who could not pay their bills was made whole. And that was made available. We have a by name list, and our utility billing staff called people. They invited them to make sure that they would be able to access those funds and be made whole. I know City of Salem staff have worked, and I'm not going to speak for Mayor Bennett, but regionally, I know we've worked really, really hard to make sure our residents have been able to stay current, keep the water and power on. Thank you, Wendy Valise. We've talked about this in a recent work session, and even increasing our partnership in keeping businesses and residents whole with their utility billing. So that's one less thing for them to have to worry about going forward. We're also looking at more prevention. Are there more improvements we can do to our infrastructure for public health and for pandemics, but also for safety and security? You know, looking at our ventilation systems, how can we partner in some of the programs that we're hearing about for improving air quality within buildings? As a person who personally has to deal with breathing issues with air quality in buildings, especially if I am working in an older building, which I have done through my career, not with the city at this point, it's an issue. And we want to make sure that our systems provide the best inside healthy environment for workers and for the public to be able to be in and be preventive in the future. Touchless systems and things like that that make it very easy, accessible, and a lot of these systems also improve our ADA compliance and take us to a whole new level. So we have multiple benefits and multiple opportunities to improve our services as a city to the people in our community. The next thing we're looking at is restoring our city functions. I know all of us who are in government took a hit in different line item areas. Our event center is funded by the transient occupancy tax, the TOT, and that of course took a huge hit, and we had to shut down because of the COVID restrictions. We haven't reopened yet. We're waiting for our level to drop where we can reopen it fully. We're either going to be open or we're not. It's not worth it to the city to try to open partly for our community center, which is 9,000 square feet of community space. Everything from small groups that want to have a reception or meeting to the large groups such as our Rotary and our Chamber of Commerce having a big events at our community center. It's a very, very busy place. It was fully booked. And last year when it got shut down, it was a very hard stop. We want to make sure that when we reopen it, we're ready to go with the quality people anticipate having their experience there. We're also going to refresh our website. Again, we're trying to do more and more electronically for our residents so we can improve our quality of service. And then we're going to invest in our infrastructure. We're going to look more at our water, wastewater systems. We, of course, partner with Salem on the wastewater facility, which is located in Kaiser. We want to do some more work with regarding our one of our pump stations. We are on a well system for our water system. And then we have 2 interties with the city of Salem, so we can assist one another with the 2 different types of water supply. We also want to look at any stormwater issues that for flood prevention and so forth with the weather. We'd never know if it's, we've had a couple of extras also, not only pandemic and the horrific fire in the canyon, and then, hey, we had nice storm, why not? Let's just throw an extra goodie in there and deal with that. Again, want to thank Salem Electric and PGE for being great partners as we found ways to, in a COVID compliant manner, to provide services, recovery, and assistance to our residences and businesses during that recovery. So using those funds, those are going to be some of our priorities for the city of Kaiser to make sure those dollars get tremendous value going forward, both for the short, medium, and long term. We'll be looking for the legislature. So thank you, Senator Patterson and Representative McKell Moore Green. Our representative, Dan Clem, and not Dan Clem, sorry, Dan. Our representative Bill Post. I saw Brian Clem's name pop up, and so then I went to Dan. So Bill Post and Senator Thatcher, I know that you're gonna be working with us closely. We appreciate the allocation we are getting through their allocation through the legislature. And again, we did that same kind of planning, look at short, medium, and long-term benefit to make those dollars work hard for us. So I want to thank you for asking me to join you today, and I look forward to any questions. And I will have to jump off at 8 o'clock for work. I don't have the benefit of being retired yet, but that's okay. One of the benefits we've seen with COVID is everybody's systems have gotten better, and Zoom is now part of our work vocabulary for a lot of people, and I appreciate that opportunity. Thank you so much.
Kathy, thanks for joining us today and giving us a little insight on what the plan is when those dollars finally get distributed. Thank you. And congratulations on the grandbaby and getting a little travel in. That's nice. Next up, Mayor Bennett, if you wouldn't mind chiming in. I know Steve is here as well, and you guys can kind of chat about City of Salem. I'm sure similarly to Mayor Clark, similar type situation of not really understanding or having the exact numbers, but a plan would be good to hear about. So thank you very much for both of you joining us. And Mayor Bennett, you're muted. I apologize.
There we go. Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for the Chamber for including us in this discussion. Actually, this is a pretty three-dimensional issue in terms of funding. It's local, state, and federal funding that's moving around at this point as the ARPA funds. But we have been very fortunate in Salem. Our city manager, as well as our chief financial officer, Bob Barron, have done an outstanding job of accounting for the costs that have occurred here at the city of Salem. At this point, we are looking at about a $34 million allocation directly to the city. It comes directly replacing lost revenues of almost $18 million. The council or the COVID reimbursements are at about $5.6 million. And we're looking at having a future project fund coming out of these funds arriving that we'll be using on a whole range of issues we're dealing with that relate specifically to the Treasury rules around the use of these funds. These are not funds you can just disperse. These are ones you have to actually relate back to COVID and to its impact on your economy and on whether it's the economy, city services, or really focused heavily on housing, shelter, broadly looking at the homeless as well as various census tracts. It's actually a fairly circumscribed process, and we're working on it quite a bit. We're also working with our legislators on specific issues that they can help us with, and talking with the federal government about some that we're very interested in. Our first priority is to stabilize the city's budget. This has been a tremendous hit on the city budget. And as all of you know, we have a range of programs inside that budget that benefit whether it's nonprofits or for-profit businesses, individual citizens, and they're facing the impact of COVID, unemployment, and other problems associated with it. At the same time, we're also dealing with a sheltering crisis in Salem. Salem is the center of dealing with homelessness. We're really the place that has to come to grips with this. We appreciate the thoughts, prayers, and help of our other elected officials around us, but ultimately it is in our lap to deal with people and where they're going to be living. You can follow this almost daily in the news, and we'll be focusing a great deal on the gaps in our systems, our sheltering systems as a result of COVID, the impact of the wildfires, the impact of unemployment. And we're looking at a range of those kind of decisions, and that's going to be part of the ongoing process at the city and at the city council. These are very high. These issues of sheltering are to the city council urgent. They're a life-saving, life-improving need, and we're looking at those ARPA funds as ones that will assist us in a variety of housing projects ahead of us, including emergency shelter. We're looking at funds coming to us for a navigation center. We're looking at a variety of managed outdoor sheltering opportunities. This is going to be a really interesting period for us as we deal with these issues. So I can go into, or Steve really better than I'm really pleased you included Steve because he knows the detail of this. But we are looking at a range of issues and assistance programs that those who have used them in our business community, nonprofit community are aware of. We're looking forward to continuing projects that just improve the ability of our community to move both through this period and out of it. So I'd turn it over to Steve to go into any detail and can really answer questions on the specifics. But we can't thank, of course, the federal government enough for the assistance. We are really pleased with the working relationship we have with our legislators who've been very responsive to the requests for assistance we've made to them through the ARPA process, and we'll continue to work forward on the set of both financial and policy issues associated with these funds.
Just quickly, Jeff, to allow time for the other participants, because the mayor did a masterful job of summarizing a pretty complex issue. I could have slept in. The point he made regarding the homeless and the sheltering, I think, is critical. The urgency is there. It is one of the identified priority uses of these funds to help mitigate, to help populations that were disparately impacted by the disease, by the pandemic, help them recover. And that's certainly true here in Salem. We have a couple hundred people sheltering in 2 of our parks. That has to end. It has to end in a way that doesn't immediately cause a transfer to other unsuitable areas for sheltering. So that's an extremely challenging issue before the city and really before our region. So we look forward to our continued efforts, continued partnerships with entities that are on this call, and to strengthen those over time. The mayor mentioned assistance. Certainly the ARPA does identify as one of its priorities, as one of its primary areas, helping recover, helping businesses, nonprofits, households recover from the economic impacts of the disease. Our approach, these funds have to be spent by December of 2024. Our approach so far has been to make sure that the programs that are already out there, including some that we've partnered with the Chamber, thank you, Tom, and the Chamber team, that those funds are out into the community before we bring additional programs into play. And I also want to help manage expectations. The sheltering, the homelessness is going to take a big chunk of our ARPA. Just to manage expectations, this homelessness sheltering crisis is significant, both in terms of the impact on the community, certainly the impact on individuals, and the impact on the city budget. Thanks.
Thank you both, Mayor Bennett and Steve Powers, for being here. There is quite a bit of issue and tough to navigate the homelessness issue, certainly here in Salem. Moving forward, Senator Patterson, would you mind jumping in at your earliest convenience there? Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jeff, and good morning, everyone. Hi, Tom. Nice to see you. And I'd like to say hello to the Honorable Denise Bowles, who's also represented this Senate district. Good morning to you as well. Related to the ARPA funds, each senator was given $4 million to designate, and I wanted the funds that I had the ability to designate to reach across the district as much as possible in ways that could provide an impact, recognizing that $4 million is a drop in the bucket compared to the funds that Mayor Bennett just discussed. So the city was receiving, for example. But I was happy to be able to respond to the request from the chamber for funds to help provide small grants to businesses that are still recovering and hadn't. I know some of the grants came out first come, first serve, and they, I mean, the money was gone almost instantly. So I was able to designate $200,000 to help with that, to add to the funds. I suspect others here on the call have also designated some of their ARPA funds there. In addition, I designated $200,000 for the same purpose to the Monmouth and Independence Chamber of Commerce, because I believe I was the only legislator who had given them any funds. So I think they'll have a comparable amount of money once the other funds are combined from other legislators here in Salem. So to me, investing in the recovery for small businesses is huge. And as Mayor Bennett and others have discussed, housing for people who are living in the tents on the corner of Market Street there and up on Salem Parkway and in their cars and in Gateway Park and over in Cascades Park. This is urgent. So I designated two portions of the funds. As you know, the Oregon Community Foundation has given $4 million through Project Turnkey to purchase a hotel to house some folks. I designated $750,000 to Arches so that they could buy a larger hotel that paid for half of the cost for them to upgrade to an 80-bed hotel. It had been a smaller one planned, I believe, and also $500,000 to Center for Hope and Safety for the Project Turnkey Hotel that they're purchasing as well towards that. In addition to the ARPA funds, that this $4 million, I've asked that from the additional ARPA funds that they consider giving $600,000 to Amsville for their through the Housing Authority to upgrade housing there as well. So hopefully that will come through. Just as a side note, a bill that Jimmy Jones had suggested be introduced was Senate Bill 850, which would require the state to report or to collect data on who dies while they're homeless. And because we don't have Multnomah County tracks this right now, no other county does. So that's it's gone through the Senate. It's going to be heard in the House this week. So I'm hopeful that might, and Mayor Bennett had mentioned the $5 million for the Navigation Center, which did pass through the House and the Senate. So that $5 million is definitely coming to Salem for that Navigation Center. Also in Hope Valley, Representative Moore Green and I have been working with the residents there that those tiny homes have been put up for sale, for auction. So we've been working with the Oregon Law Center. Housing is just critical to try to help those folks to find a way to be able to stay in their homes. Thirdly, social services across the district were a focus. I really felt like the fund should be to try to help people, as you know, not just one area, but across, and especially investing in young people. So I've designated $200,000 to the Willamette Career Center. I see Diane McLaren here. I know how dear CTEC is to her heart. And so these funds would be given to the Willamette Educational Services District to help with the finish. I realize it's a private partnership, and shout out to Mountain West. They are leading the way. And Tom took me on a tour there a few months back, which was really wonderful. So I was really happy to be able to designate some funds towards that completion, which I believe they're going to open fully in September if it's still on track for that. I see Tom nodding there. Also, $500,000 for Liberty House. There's those of you who've been talking with Allison Kelly will know that because we did had online school and so many kids were at home, there's a fear that the number of kids who are going to be reported as having been abused is going to rise dramatically when people return to in person. So that will help towards meeting their budget needs for this year. I designated $300,000 to Western Oregon University's Bilingual Teacher Scholars Program that would provide $103,000 scholarships to young people who are studying to be bilingual teachers in the public school system, as well as $100,000 for Shangri-La and $50,000 for United Way. And finally, with, related to business, transportation is important. And while I wish I could wish we had enough money together here in our state to put in a wonderful high-speed rail system between Salem or Eugene, essentially, and Portland. That would be fabulous. We don't. But the last $1 million I designated to a bus transport, electric bus transport between Monmouth and Independence to get from the university to the downtown facility. Their bus system is not what Salem's is. So, and Representative Moore Green and I have been working to get the $3 million for the water upgrade in Turner. I know Mayor Clark mentioned water too. So, and Salem, of course, is working on their water upgrades. So hopefully that will come through from ARPA funds, but not particularly these funds that we had to personally designate. So anyway, thanks for the opportunity to talk with you today. And I'm going to be interested to hear what everyone else has to say. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator. I need to real quickly just fall on the sword a little bit. Representative Brian Clem jumped in and joined us. I do have a quick bio, but before I get into that, why don't we move forward with Representative Moore Green and hear from her. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. It's so nice to see you. I can hardly wait to see everybody in person. I keep thinking every time we get an invitation for this that Tom's going to say, and we'll see you at 1110 Commercial Street Northeast, Salem. So until then, thank you, Chamber, for reaching out and having us join you this morning. It's been an honor to be able to represent the community. And I want to say that as I've listened to our two mayors speak, I'm so incredibly proud of the stewardship and the leadership that our cities have taken on during this pandemic and the wildfires and the ice storm. I don't forget the ice storm. House District 19 was hit particularly hard by that. But your due diligence, your focus on the needs, you make me proud. So thank you for that. And I want to thank Senator Patterson for working together with me when the legislators were notified that we would receive what is known as, what we call in the building, our local community investment. And so each representative was allotted $2 million to invest back into their House district and their community. The senators were given $4 million. So as I'm listening to Senator Patterson, I'm going, oh, I don't quite match up to the amount she gave. But then I realized, well, she got twice as much money as I did. So, you know, I feel good. As a matter of fact, I feel very good about the investments that I've directed for House District 19. And I'll just start at the top of my list was the city of Almsville. And it's a $300,000. They have multiple water projects in Almsville at the moment that need addressing. And this one will take care of, they have a water tower in one of their parks. And so it's one of those projects that will enhance the park, but will also help to address their water issue. Then the city of Turner, here again, a project to benefit their community. They have, for many of you know of the Birkeland Pool there in Turner and have probably swam there, or your children or grandchildren have. And they have a bathhouse that is as old as the structure, it's original. And we're making a $300,000 investment to bring that up to code. and outfit it for 2022. So I'm excited about that. Here again, investments in 2 of the cities I represent that will directly benefit the community. And then moving to my third allotment, and that's to the Willamette Career Center. And here again, a shout out to Mountain West and all of the local businesses and the community that has come around that project. And I allotted 150 million. There we go. There you have it. 150,000 to that effort. And I'd like to thank JL Wilson. I'm not sure that he's with us this morning, but he has certainly spearheaded that project in front of the legislature. And I'm hoping that will come to fruition as well. Then I made, so let me back up for a second here. So we were given the money, and on the House side, we were told that we had 4 buckets. We had 4 allocations that could be made because literally a bill is being drafted that will get to House District 19 with 4 line items in there. And so what I did was I contacted United Way and worked with Rhonda Wolf, and she is more than willing, obviously, to distribute the gifts or the contributions that I've earmarked. And so I'm going to run through those for you. So United Way will be getting 1.25 million, and it's going to be just, let me run through how that will be distributed. So $100,000 to Boys and Girls Club, and this is for the Epping Homestead building. Casa of Marion and Polk counties will get $100,000, and this is, you know, they know that there are going to be more kids that are going to need to be seen and supported with CASAs. So we're excited about that. $100,000 to Hope and Safety, here again for their Hope Plaza. $100,000 to Church at the Park. And part of what prompted that contribution was the excellent presentation that Public Policy had last month on homelessness in Salem. I came away here again duly impressed with the efforts that are being made, the collaborativeness of the organizations that are at the table. And DJ Vincent and I have spoken, and you know, this money is to be directed for the homeless issue here in Salem and how they're carrying that out in collaboration with the city. $100,000 to Family Building Blocks, $100,000 to Habitat for Humanity, $50,000 to the Kroc Center, $100,000 to the Latino Business Alliance. And as we know, our businesses have been hit hard, and especially our BIPOC community, and Jose Gonzalez has done a tremendous job to piece together that organization and keep it moving forward, providing the support to the small businesses that participate there. $100,000 to Liberty House, $150,000 to the Salem Area Chamber of Commerce, $100,000 to the Salem Health Foundation. And what prompted that particular contribution was the tremendous effort that Salem Health has undertaken, not only since the pandemic, but specifically around the vaccine distribution. They were first in the state to have a mass vaccine location out and running. And I had the honor of getting a tour, and I think they'd been up and running for about 3 weeks, and I made it over there. And as we were completing the tour, I asked Cheryl Wolf, I said, so, you know, the finances around this, how is this being handled? And because it was at the state fairgrounds. And she said, well, that the fairgrounds itself was about $60,000 a month to rent. And, you know, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, you know, here we have a local nonprofit hospital providing a service to our community that the state needs done. And I'm thinking, how can we help recoup that, you know, when my state hat on? And so that's what prompted this conversation with Salem Health. You know, okay, if I make an investment back with ARPA money, where would that best be invested? And you know, they have the new building going up over there, and so this is being directed to the foundation, and it's part of their respite and reflection support for families experiencing health crisis. And you know, so many times the folks who end up at the ER are those who don't necessarily see a doctor on a regular basis, and so this waiting area will be a welcoming place for those families. And then $100,000 to the Santiam Canyon Wildfire Relief Fund. And I have said it many times, and I know all of you have heard it, that the canyon is the backyard to the Salem area and to House District 19. And providing funding to the canyon, that relief fund, I think, is a long-term investment. They laid out a plan early on that they knew that the recovery was going to take a while. And they've been very diligent with their money. They're trying to get that fund up to $5 million and be able to make continued investments over the long term, because we know that recovery is going to take a while. And then $50,000 to United Way of Mid-Willamette Valley. And here again, they have responded in such a tremendous way for our community, not only with the pandemic, but with the wildfire and with the ice storm. And so I just want to wrap this back up to say that from, you know, this time last year when I was asked what my priorities were as a legislator, and first and foremost, that is representing the constituents of House District 19, making sure that when they're intersecting with the state services, that if they need assistance, I'm there to help them, our office is. Secondly, response to the pandemic and the impact that it's had, not only health-wise, business-wise, education-wise. And so within that response to the pandemic, there's support to businesses, there's support to education, and there's support to children. And then we, wildfire relief, here again, top of the list. And we've had many bills come through already that we've voted on, and I'm sure Senator Patterson has also supporting the wildfire relief work that Representative Clem's committee has done just a tremendous amount of work on. And then there's the ice storms, and I might be the only one in the legislature who continues to bring that to everybody's attention. But House District 19, Salem was very hard hit, as was Almsville and Turner. I mean, I had constituents who were without electricity, you know, going on 12 days. And those were difficult conversations, but we had them and we moved through. So we want to make sure that our infrastructure can respond to future events in a manner that is beneficial to everybody. It's a tough place to be during those unexpected disasters. And I could probably talk for another 20 minutes, but I hope that Rep. Clem is here and can join us. So thank you.
He is. Raquel, thank you very much. Real quickly, just going back, you had mentioned some dollars going to Turner, and I apologize, you probably mentioned it and I didn't catch it.
Yes, so specific? Yes. Mm-hmm. So 300,000 to the city of Almsville and 300,000 to the city of Turner. Thank you, Jeff.
Perfect, thank you. Just trying to write some notes. I always like keeping track of some things. Representative Brian Clem is here. Although his camera is off, I'm sure he's paying attention very closely. With that said, again, I do apologize. I will fall on the sword a little bit on that. So real quickly, a quick intro for Representative Clem. Representative Brian Clem is the 5th generation Oregonian, born and raised in Coos Bay. By the way, I spent a lot of time in Coos Bay riding 4-wheelers all over those dunes. That's a fun place. I won't digress with other stories, not necessary. After serving as student body president and graduating Mega Cum Laude from the University of Oregon. Thank you, Oregon State.
No,
University.
Oregon State.
That's
Oregon
terrible.
State.
That's terrible. I can't believe that was a mistake. Totally different
Oh
colors.
my
It's a weird deal.
gosh, no.
It's a weird deal. Sorry. After college, he worked for Oregon State Senator Cliff Trout. After moving on to work for the United States Senator Ron Wyden, Brian has been appointed by 2 governors to the Oregon Student Assistance Commission and was serving in his 4th term as his chair and 2nd term as president of the Salem City Club before resigning and serving in House District 21. In 2000, Brian established his own small business, On-Site PC Help. In 2010, co-founded an international trading company. And Brian, what is the name of that company again? I apologize.
Pangea Trading.
Pangea Trading, which focuses on exporting Oregon goods abroad, if I understood that correctly. So with that said, I butchered that a couple times, Brian, and I do apologize. That said, please jump in and save me from continuing to screw that up. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem at all. And I think I probably failed to RSVP, so I'm sure it's my fault. So happy to be here. Let me describe, I would call it my somewhat unorthodox approach to the ARPA funds. One of the things that I have thought for a long time is the state, when giving out particularly economic development money, doesn't do it the way the private sector usually does. I myself now am doing a decent amount of angel investing, and I've been on the other side asking for investors in my businesses, and it is the best equivalent for folks who aren't in this space. It's more like Shark Tank. That's what it's like. You get grilled pretty hard when you're asking somebody for their money, particularly in like a friends and family type round, where you have a savvy investor, or the next round. You don't just fill out a form and then if you're first in line, you get the money. And the state sometimes is like that. Previously, it can be illogical sometimes who gets the funding and who doesn't, or the funding can come in such a way that it sounds good on paper, and the project sounds good, but there's not really kind of a detailed understanding of the business plan, who the management team is, what's your exit strategy. And the state does make investments, even sometimes equity investments in private companies. So for many years, I've been talking with the head of Business Oregon, and I've been through 2 or 3 of them in my 14 years, about reforming the way we do economic development to make it match more like private entrepreneurs raise money. And so I've decided to model the $2 million I have after what I'm describing. I've worked with Commissioner Cameron, as he can validate in a second, to basically park the $2 million with Marion County's economic development. And then we will build essentially a Shark Tank contest for the money. And there will be judges. I won't be one of them. There'll be judges representing things like the chamber, and other organizations and civic leaders, faith community, and they'll give out the money, not me. And another benefit of this is there's so much federal money right now that I'm nervous that when it runs out, there's still going to be worthy projects that need that last dollar to complete. And we have until December 31st, 2024. So I'm not in as big a rush to put the funds, into use this month, as there's lots of funds available at the moment that won't be there later. So my goal is to sort of model best behavior that I would like to see the state do in the future. And that's have people who are tough questioners about how the money's going to be spent, looking for those golden nuggets that they just need the right opportunity to make their pitch. And you sort of know it when you hear it. In this environment, I've been just the last week getting pitched by this Portland startup to invest, and they took me to a Blazer game and a bunch of other stuff, but I still have some questions about their business model. And so I want our community. So the term in the paper I think I used is the Salem Community Investment Fund, but I want our community and people, and I haven't even asked him, so I won't use him as a guaranteed judge, but someone like Dick Withnell, who when he's on a board of a nonprofit, he puts you through your paces. He wants to know what the ROI is. He wants to know, whether this is the state, when the state's investing its money, it's the kind of questions he would ask if he were investing his own money. So anyway, that's the basic concept of mine, is no direct grants to people. Even though lots of the project my colleagues mentioned are ones I thought about, and I expect they may end up getting funds, but I sort of want to empower people across the leadership cadre in Salem to give out the money rather than me do it. So that's my theory.
Great, thank you. And Brian, did you say that Commissioner Cameron was going to chime in on that a little bit? I guess where I was going with it is, how will the selection committee for the Shark Tank type program work?
Yeah, so first of all, we needed to move. That was the other problem, was we had a very compressed timeline to name your projects. And I wasn't yet confident that I had the full scope of the community's potential. Like a little girl's lemonade stand could be the very best idea we've all heard of once we hear it, but she doesn't know how to get the word to me as a legislator. So I asked Kevin, I need a place that qualifies to hold the funds while we set up the protocol. And I talked with Tom a little bit about this too, because the chamber had asked for a very modest contribution to a business cash grant program. And so what we're doing is having Marion County Economic Development, who is an eligible holder of the funds, pull it down from the state so it can then be here in sort of local control. And then we'll work with the chamber and put together a really pretty cool program that'll hopefully get some media attention and be newsworthy, because the point of it is anybody who's got a good idea should have a shot at this. But you're going to have to defend yourself, and whether it's homelessness solutions, tiny houses, a business idea, I want people to be prepared that you're going to get asked tough questions by the sharks, and each shark will be allocated a certain amount of money, and they might all decide they all want to give it to the one fantastic idea. Or they may decide to give it up in $10,000 increments. But we'll set up the criteria as we go over the next couple months, because as I said, we have 3.5 years to spend it, and I don't want to spend it all at once and then be high and dry for the last 2 years of the cycle.
Gotcha. Thank you. You mentioned one idea of a lemonade stand. I've always liked lemonade, maybe with a little extra sauce in it. So I might be one of those sharks that would vote for something like that. Side note, I digress. Moving forward, thank you for joining us, Representative Clem. Commissioner Pope, I see you've been sitting there waiting patiently with your Oregon State Beavers sign and the Corvette. I think that's a Corvette. I'm not sure what year, but it looks good.
It is. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity. I will tell you that the Polk County Board of Commissioners, first and foremost, hasn't deliberated or decided on anything for the $16.7 million that is being allocated to Polk County government. And we have, by the way, received our first half of that $16.7 million. So we know that the money's real, checks in the bank. But I would also tell you that it hasn't been mentioned here that we have commented on the record how irregular this process is. And have also noted for our constituents and taxpayers that this is especially irregular in that we receive all this money and then we got to figure out how we're going to use it. That's not how we're all used to doing business. You're supposed to do the planning work, and you're supposed to, have all of the issues vetted, and then get in line for money, put together a strategy for supporting your projects with financing. And that's what taxpayers expect you to do. So this is a very difficult process for all of us when we're essentially swimming in cash we didn't anticipate, we didn't plan for. And we're very sensitive to making certain that we justify spending taxpayer dollars, because it's the taxpayers' money, in a way that gives the best benefit to the broadest cross-section of the taxpayers in our county. So with that, I would tell you that though, again, we haven't deliberated and decided on anything, it is fairly common consensus for us that we are not likely to be trying to figure out how to divide up some of this money and sprinkle it around the community in some effort to make everyone feel like they got something out of it, cash-wise. That to us doesn't seem like a process that our constituents could say 5 or 10 years down the road, wow, I really do appreciate the way that we invested our tax dollars back into things that improved our quality of life across the entire community. So that's our drive, first and foremost, is to try to find ways to improve quality of life. And we always keep our eye on, as we discuss this, this money is coming to our communities under the guise of COVID. And so, there's supposed to be some element of COVID and COVID relief attached to these dollars. So, the number one project for me has been broadband. And as we've all witnessed over the last 15 months, that the pandemic, forced us all into this digital mode and has really identified where the weaknesses are. And though we've done a really good job of taking our, $1 million of our first CRF allocation and getting it into the hands of a provider that helped us get broadband, wireless broadband services up to nearly 95% of our constituents in the county, we still have at least 5% of our communities that have little to nothing. And those 5% are the hardest to serve. They're the most expensive to serve. They're the ones that generally your providers will not spend any money on because they're extremely expensive. But if we're going to be fair and equitable about supporting all working families, all families across our county, then we're going to find a way to see to it that everyone has an equal opportunity at having a digital access in their home. So we will be spending some of this money on that. We don't know the number yet. Additionally, I would tell you that, as I'm sure all of you have read in Salem Reporter, that I worked with Senator Boquist on his $4 million access, and we've agreed that $1.68 million of his allocation would be the appropriate amount by share of district to come to Polk County, and that money would be invested in broadband specifically. So that is a commitment. So if that money makes it through the Christmas tree bill, that will be the first dollars that we will commit to broadband. And my intention is to leverage that money with Business Oregon grants, if possible, and Oregon broadband. So if we need $3 million, for example, I don't know a number yet, but if we need $3 million, my expectation is to leverage that money first. So additionally, I would tell you that water and water infrastructure is a top priority of mine, has been for a decade, continuing to try to find pathways to work with our municipal communities about their plans for the future. We have determined that it's time for us to definitely spend this money, invest this money, some of this money into facilitating conversations with all of our water providers across the county to talk about needs and systems wants going forward. And we've been waiting for a long time to do this through water resources and through place-based planning, and I'm just tired of waiting. So I'm starting those conversations with cities, and we have some water allocation that needs to be distributed to cities over the next 20 years and in a permit that the county holds. So we're going to have those conversations. It costs a lot of money, sadly, to have those meetings and do the planning work and do the studies. So we're going to invest some of this money in that and make certain that that gets done, because waiting for the state to help us get that done has just taken too long. So we think that's a really solid place to be investing. We intend to probably invest some money in some family community services facilities. We've clearly identified during COVID, and the fires in September exacerbated this a bit too. But we've clearly identified that when we have a crisis, we don't have nearly enough family community service opportunities, facilities. We have enough staff generally, we just don't have enough room. So if you're trying to take in donations and store goods so that you're ready to be able to help a larger block of the community, it takes space. And we're sensitive to building more government structures, but COVID has really helped Polk County identify how far behind we are in that regard. So if we were going to invest in some facility, it's likely we would do that. Additionally, in those facilities, my concept in that kind of work is to be able to always try to build in a childcare center element into any buildings that we build going forward. So childcare centers, all childcare in our Willamette Valley here has been identified. We've been identified as a childcare desert, and it's absolutely true in Polk County, and was again extremely well enunciated during COVID. And we're all, as employers, we're all suffering some because of that as well. So we have not had adequate childcare facilities and infrastructure to help us with that. And to me, childcare is if we want to get out into the weeds about talking about infrastructure and what infrastructure really means, childcare is infrastructure to me. And I think for all of us, we all understand that if you have a problem at any point with your childcare system in your own family, it can threaten your job. It can threaten your livelihood. And that's not something that we should turn a blind eye to. So I'm really focused on that. So if we can invest some dollars there, that would help. Those are definitely the kinds of things that our communities will say long-term. I'm glad that our commissioners invested in that. Our fairgrounds facilities during COVID was definitely identified as woefully short. And though we stepped up with our facilities and did everything that we could do, we certainly found that, again, back to broadband, that our broadband services, our ability to communicate at the level Salem Health needed us to be able to communicate was not even close to what it had to be. So we definitely will be investing some dollars there and putting more effort into that facility, having the capacity to be an emergency operations center, a true emergency operations center, and much more communication capacity and ability to operate as a year-round emergency facility. Transportation infrastructure is something that we will focus on, and we definitely can identify that we lost dollars during COVID. We lost dollars from our transportation fund, so we know that that is a direct impact to the county financially. I can tell you that we don't really identify any other shortage on revenue other than that specifically. We have been reimbursed for costs on just about everything we've done through all of the COVID assistance, but transportation funding is not one of those things that's been covered. So we do intend to try and make that whole as much as we possibly can. Still arguing a little bit about what transportation infrastructure assistance under this ARPA money can actually be used. I think we can make a great case for building roads and bridges, but $16.7 million doesn't buy us very much, as you all know these days, in infrastructure. Additionally, I would tell you that we have definitely identified, and the September fire helped us do this as well, our emergency services radio equipment and systems upgrades are definitely in need. And though it's harder to tie that directly to COVID, it did play a part, and it did have an element of involvement. But we've been able, as we've had a conversation about where would we invest, been able to identify that we have radio systems that are more than 20 years old. And in the radio world and radio communications world, that is very old. So additionally, with that, in communications, we've, as everybody else here, I'm confident, is identifying that cybersecurity is a #1 issue for all of our IT and IS folks. And our IT folks work not only for Polk County, but they work for several of our cities in the county as well. And so cybersecurity is a big deal, and we're seeing it more and more in the news every day. So we're going to, and a lot of times we say, wow, it's just so expensive. You know, the protection is just so expensive. So it's hard to plan for that, and then you get hit. So we're going to be as proactive in that cybersecurity element as we possibly can. And then finally, I'll end with telling you all, we have no plans to start up any program that isn't, I mean, we're just not planning to start any programs. We're not planning to spend any money from this on anyone's wages, especially not in county government. Now, that doesn't mean that we won't figure out a way where we can offset and, you know, have some opportunity to reserve some dollars that potentially could save us a taxation later on. Clearly, that's an identifier for me that's important, that we do everything we can to show our taxpayers that we're putting that money back where it would have gone if we'd asked them directly for it. So, like I said, we don't have any plans to support wages or wage increases with this money directly, or to start up any programs that don't already have a sustainability plan. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Craig. I just want to echo, there's been a couple comments in the chat applauding you and the county's efforts to try and expand that broadband. And I just have to say, I'm a big, huge advocate of children. I think they're our greatest natural resource moving forward personally. And to think that there are kids during this time that have had to go through Zoom for classes has got to be a terrible thing. And just speaking for myself, kind of going back to the University of Hard Knocks, I guarantee you, I would have not been successful this past year or so having to survive that. I would have been outside. You know, it just would have been a terrible deal to think that some of these children do not have the capability even logging in. That's a real bummer. So I just want to echo some of those sentiments applauding that effort. So thank you.
Thank you. Hey, Jeff, if I might, just a quick follow-up. So I'm watching KTW News this morning, 6 o'clock, seeing an ad or seeing a quick story on there about celebrating teachers and, you know, celebrating teachers who are runners up, for example, which is great. And I absolutely support that, you bet. But it made me think about my two daughters, three daughters, 2 daughters and a daughter-in-law, who have become teachers over the last 15 months. And just had a celebration of one of my grandsons graduating from kindergarten. His mama was a teacher, and she also has a near 3-year-old that's running right alongside this 5-year-old boy the whole time. So she's not just a teacher of a kindergartner, she's a teacher of a 3-year-old too, 2.5 to 3 years old. And so I just want to remind everybody, let's figure out a way to celebrate and thank all of those parents out there who became teachers in the last 15 months that never signed up for that, but they knew that was their job. And there are moms and dads out there who have done amazing work at supporting our education system. So we always want to remember them.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. Thank you. Commissioner Cameron, I saw your camera pop on and it popped right back off. I'm hoping that there he is. Look at that fella, ready to roll as always. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Jeff. I got to listen. I left Detroit when this started and I got to listen to it. I just got to my office, so it's perfect. Yeah, just so everybody knows, I got back into my house about 3 weeks ago, and then I had a flood in my house. So, but I'm back in, and things are going great. Just some good news. We had 5 ribbon cuttings in Detroit last weekend of businesses that are reopening and structures that are going up. So that's all good news. On this topic, I first want to say that I want to say thank you to the taxpayers. However, if this was our money, I would feel a little bit different than I do. This is our grandkids' money. This is money that we don't have, that's being borrowed on the backs of the future of our children and our grandchildren. So as we've been listening to the investments that we're making, that's kind of my attitude as I'm moving forward. I'll say this, there's going to be in Marion County, I keep saying this over and over again, we're going to have, it's been a crazy 12, 14 months. And it's so crazy that we're going to have Christmas in July this year. And what do I mean by that? Well, we got $80 million in ask, and I want to say thank you to Representative Clem and the great work that he's done in the Wildfire Recovery Committee there, and also on the Senate side, Senator Gordon's committee. So we'll see what's going to come out of the $80 million in asks that we have for wildfire recovery, which would include infrastructure, sewer systems, water systems for the canyon. There's $63 million in the ARP funds. It's not ARPA, it's ARP, American Recovery Plan, that's coming to Marion County. And then there's the CARES Act money that we've had and just got even more of it from the state that we have to use fairly quickly. Here's the thing, in Christmas in July, we'll know exactly what we have. We don't know today. We know the 63 million will come. We don't know what's going to come from the legislature yet. We're hoping that things don't go crazy and that we get what Representative Clem's been working really hard to make happen, as well as the governor's office has been involved in that, and Jody Christensen. Our process here is we have 20 cities, 20 incorporated cities in Marion County, the most cities of any county in the state of Oregon of the 36 counties. So we've already set up, I believe it's a series of 3 meetings with those cities. We're inviting the mayors, their economic development people to actually come together over those 3 meetings. What we want to hear is what are their top priorities? What do those cities really think their projects are? And we just want to do a listening session so we can grab all that information. And we can use that information to help us make a decision on where the best investments are. And I'll go back to the investments that I personally want to see. And that's the ones that will have lasting effect that will impact my grandsons, our grandchildren. Because if you think about this, $63 million is about $185 per citizen in Marion County. It's not a lot per citizen, but if you put this in the right places, and you've heard about water, you've heard about sewer, you've heard about maybe a traffic signal or congested area that could really use it for further development, where a business could be successful and come in and my grandsons would have a job in the future, or even maybe own that business. So that's what we're going to do is we're still taking a step back. We're waiting to see what we have. We're going to go through a process to hear what's important to the other local governments that we represent and work with. And you heard that from the city of Salem. You've heard that from Kaiser today. And then we'll move forward. We have not deliberated on this, as Commissioner Pope said here at Marion County. We just know that we're setting up the process to be able to do it. So I'll stop because I know you're on a timeline. I won't go into any more detail than that unless somebody has some questions.
Well, I have not seen any questions pop in here, Kevin. I see that Combs on the line as well. I don't know if he wants to just chime in. He wasn't scheduled, but happy to have him if he wants to chime in and give any thoughts in addition to that. Colm, are you with us?
I am. I'm driving, so I'm not going to have my video on. But Kevin pretty much summed up our process. So that's sort of the process we're going to go through before we decide how to allocate those funds.
Gotcha. Thank you. So Kevin, when you talk about if you could just go back, I'm sorry, you put forth a $80 million ask. Is that correct? Did I hear that correctly? For
fire relief. I could detail that, what those asks are. I mean, I don't have it right in front of me, but it's about 60 million for sewer project. 40 of that would go Mill City Gates Mill City has a sewer system. It's reaching end of life. We've already done the engineering. We've been spending economic development dollars. Danielle Gonzalez in our office here over the last 5 years has been working on this. We just got the preliminary engineering back. That system is doable. If we get the financing, we'd start the plans and final engineering and probably have it built within 2 to 3, 4 years. Detroit Idana is a different project. The other 20 million would go towards 10 million of that would be towards septic system grants for people that can't rebuild because of their septic system in the fire, and they're not and have a big enough spot or the right soil. So we want to help those people with grants up in that particular area. And then the other 10 million would be for further engineering and development of a system up there. So that's the biggest chunk that's in that. There's money in there for revenue replacement, or actually expense replacement, as we call it with the legislature for the cities. That Marion County has hired 2 very, very talented city managers, one for the city of Gates and one for the city of Detroit, that are supporting the mayors and the other staff up there. Chris Epley, who was with Kaiser for, I believe, 18 years, and Marianne Hills, who was Almsville city manager for many, many years, are those 2 part-time people that are helping us. So there's quite a bit of housing. There's several $1 million in there for housing to get some housing starts back up in the canyon. We're working on multifamily housing with our housing authority, et cetera, in the Mill City area. You've got over 700 employees between those 2 mills up there, Ferris and Frank Lumber. If you think about how hard their labor is, they're way down in staffing, and people lost their homes. I think they had 28 families at Ferris that lost homes. So we're trying to work to bring back infrastructure and housing in the canyon, and that's a big part of the ask. And Representative Clem, who happens to be a graduate of Oregon State University, by the way, go Beavs. Yeah, he's been doing great work with us to do that.
I always love these types of conversations when I screw up and I'm the butt of the joke. It's always fun for me. And, I'll continue to mess those up a little bit just for comedy. I don't see why not. It's always a pleasure.
Jeff, I'm in your class. Trust me.
Well, listen, I know that you're a huge advocate of the canyon and what's going on up there, and I've always appreciated that about you. And that is a tough deal up there, as everyone knows. I've been up there multiple times since, and pretty devastating from the time I was a little kid, and going up there to what it is today is vastly different. That said, I do want to say to everyone who is still on the call that is here representing their municipality, I just think it's a tough thing to navigate this past year. And I really want to applaud everyone who is stuck in there and kept grinding. It isn't easy with the pandemic, the fires, the ice storm, dealing with everything that's happened, the diversity that this community this country and our community individually has felt. I think it's a very difficult thing to navigate. And I just want to applaud everyone who has been here today speaking on it, and as well as everyone in the private sector who has navigated that. I see some other business owners here that it's been a real struggle for everyone. And I think that it was interesting last night. I was up at West Salem High School. There was the final football game between the 2 junior highs here in West Salem. And as one of the coaches of the high school, all the coaches were there kind of supporting these young kids. And to see the stadium almost packed with people that were there supporting their children playing the game. There were little kids at one end that weren't paying attention, but they were having a doggone good time throwing the ball around and being rowdy. And you see all these kids that are just having a good time. And it just seems to me that there's a sense of normalcy that people are begging for, and getting back out and being social and using sport to do that in some regard. And so I think that everyone's had to face it. I just want to say, I think whether you're a public official or private sector person, it's been a very difficult road to navigate. And I'm pretty tickled, and I think everyone on the call is tickled to think that we're moving forward from that. So with that said, I'm sorry, Tom. Yep, I see your hand up, please.
Jeff, and one of our great chamber members, Wendy Child, sent me a pretty powerful email last week, and she posted a question in here directed to Commissioner Cameron and Commissioner Willis that I'm wondering if we could get read and get some commentary from one or both of the county commissioners.
Of course, please read.
Kevin and Colum, the question is, could Marion County commissioners put forth a statement banning vaccine passports in Marion County and banning businesses from asking their clientele on their vaccine status? Do you have commentary on that?
Sure. I think that letter was signed to the governor yesterday. But here's the thing, Tom, we're not enforcing any of that. We haven't enforced the stuff that has been put down. It's all been OLCC or OSHA. We're not, our health department's not in there checking restaurants to see if they're validating that. We don't support that. We've made that very public. We just sent a letter. I don't know, Colm, you can maybe say if it went out yesterday. I remember signing it yesterday morning. So we see it as an invasion of your freedom and your privacy and all kinds of things. So I don't see it as an issue yet. I don't see that any business has been dinged for not doing it yet. And we're not obviously doing it. If they are, it's coming from the state.
Yeah, I mean, I would just add, I think one of the things that's frustrating and has been frustrating throughout the pandemic is that the government orders, you name it, that she claims has the force of law, even though they're not laws that are made through the usual American way that we know, pursuant to her emergency powers, is what she's saying. But some of the rules that she makes don't make any sense, right? So like she said that people, you couldn't have more than 6 people in your house for Thanksgiving, right? If there's a right to assembly, that obviously and blatantly and facially violates your right to assemble. If you can't assemble with your own family in your own home on Thanksgiving, you don't have any right to assemble at all. Similar when it comes to like health privacy rights and the right to be free from an invasion of your privacy. So if the government or businesses can demand you give them your personal health information, then you have no health privacy rights. So I think that's the thing that a lot of people have been frustrated with throughout this. And unfortunately, because the county is a subdivision of the state, we can't just go out there and say, well, we're going to overturn state law because we don't have that legal authority. So what you've had counties like us just basically ignore laws or things that the governor may claim are laws, whether they are or not is a whole another question. And because she sort of knows she's on tenuous position, she doesn't really go and enforce it against us. And so you have all this confusion. You have no certainty for businesses. You put businesses in really hard places. You put constituents and citizens in really hard places. You're asking people to violate their rights. It's just been a total, utter mess. And I'm hopeful that, basically within the next week or two, this is all going to end. But, I think it's been a frustration of mine is I think there has been and could be consensus policy, reasonable policy that everybody could get around. COVID didn't have to be a political thing. But unfortunately, some folks thought that would be political, and I think it's caused a lot of pain for people.
Tom, the one thing I would add to that is just that if a business chooses to require face masks, if I walked in there, I'd honor it, right? Businesses still have that ability to require that. It's up to the individual business.
It's complex, and I would hearken back to a document that this chamber issued in January to our state legislators regarding localized limited liability protection. And It fell on deaf ears, and that was very disappointing for the business community. We had massive consensus from all chambers of commerce across the state, including leadership by the Oregon State Chamber and the Salem Chamber, Bend Chamber, Medford Chamber, Eugene Chamber, Hillsborough Chamber. I can go down the list, and it is now coming back around, and we continue to face issues that we were able to provide limited liability protection for our teachers and employees within government, but not for businesses. Before we wrap up, Jeff, I have one, I want to end on a high note, and something that was very exciting is working with our great city councilors who may not have always seen businesses with and participate in businesses themselves in some respects. And in Ward 1, Virginia Stapleton, the Salem Chamber resides in Ward 1, and under the great leadership of Mayor Bennett, there have been a lot of complexities thrown at the city council, and including City Manager Steve Powers and Chief Womack, Police Chief Womack, over the last number of months. And these individuals are truly professionals, doing the best they can to assist in the needs of our unsheltered population, and facing some quite a bit of feedback from our community. We would ask that feedback would remain civil, and to be name calling and the like is just unfair for these volunteer leaders on our city council. On an encouraging note, I spent about an hour and a half yesterday walking Front Street with Virginia Stapleton and helping her see what could become with those incredible facilities that could look out over the river. These are premier, absolutely premier real estate opportunities for us to have development in.
Yeah.
And for our city councilor, Virginia Stapleton, I think it was very eye-opening for her to see a number of those facilities and what we could potentially do in the future. And so those of you involved in the real estate world, commercial real estate world, and those in the residential real estate world, let's really be paying attention, because we have some opportunities for redevelopment in the future on Front Street. We have a city councilor whose interest is incredibly piqued right now. And I know through the thoughtful leadership of Mayor Bennett and others that we are going to have the opportunity to look and see what that could be in the future. And there isn't anybody who looks at that stretch of land and doesn't think, imagine a hotel there, or restaurants, or a brew pub, just what could happen. And there is no defined thing. Mayor Bennett and I get to meet tomorrow morning and have some conversation, and I will certainly like to hear his lead on this and what could happen. But just the fact that we're having dialogue with Councilor Stapleton and others on this is very encouraging, that they are starting to see a little bit of what Salem could become. And not everything is just about our unsheltered individuals in our community. There is great opportunity as well. And so it's encouraging, and thank everybody for paying attention to what we could be doing in the future that'd be very positive for this city. Jeff, the stage is yours to wrap us up.
Thank you, Tom. I do think that's encouraging. And I certainly would love to participate in some of those conversations. If Mayor Bennett ever wants to have a conversation, I'd love to chat with you, Mayor. Along those lines, thank you everyone for jumping on and listening for the information that was presented this morning from our presenters. Please join us next month, July. We will be having one, even though it's prior to July 4th. I don't remember the exact date. I'm looking very quickly. And it looks like I don't even have it in front of me. That's terrible. Regardless, right before July 4th, we will be having a legislative wrap up, and we're still working on that, but it'd be really great for everyone to chime in, to listen in for what happened with the legislature this year, and kind of get some updates on that. So with that said, I hope everyone really enjoys the day, enjoy the sunshine, and thank you for jumping on with us this morning. Have a great day, everyone.